Okay, let's go into Nail. So, Nail has a handful of unique mechanics and is probably the most chaotic phase in the fight. To me, it feels like organized chaos. There's a handful of things happening, so let's just jump right into it. So, Nail has just landed and has done a splash damage cleave around our main tank. And then what that tank is going to do is take a Raven's Beak. So Raven's Beak is a 5-point attack. So there it is going off right there. So it's going to hit 5 times. So what we did a lot of times was just use an invuln. So we would use like Super Bowl Light to take the dive and the Raven's Beak. Then we want to try to move the boss to the middle of the arena. It's tight moving it there because Raven's Beak is going off and then she's casting Bahamut's favor. But you do want to try to get her centered as much as possible. So Bahamut's favor is going to spawn 5 dragons randomly throughout the arena. Okay, these dragons are going to be used for a lot of different things. So let's go through what all the dragons do really quick. One dragon will target a random person with a fire tether, and when that fire tether disappears, it snapshots that player, and then they will explode with a fire splash damage around them, and that hits everybody that's around them. Another dragon will randomly spit ice balls at people and give them an ice debuff. The way that the fire and the ice work is that if you take a fire debuff, you take the fire tether, you get a debuff called Fire Scorched. If you get hit by the fire tether again while you're Fire Scorched, you die. If you get hit by an ice ball, you get an ice debuff. You get hit by another ice ball, you die. But basically, if you think it as neutral is 0 and fire is 1 and ice is negative. This is how I think about it. So you get hit by fire, you move from 0 to 1. If you get hit by ice, you go from 1 to 0. So the easiest way to do this, there are 4 fire tethers that come out throughout the phase. You can get hit by 3. You cannot get hit by 4. So I'm going to be going over this through the video, but what most groups do and what we did, we have everybody soak the first fire tether. The second fire tether goes off and just soaks on their own. And then everybody soaks the third fire tether except for the person who took the second one. And then everybody stacks again for the fourth one. And if you do that, it will completely resolve the fire and the ice dragons, and you don't have to worry about that. The other 3 dragons will cast Doom on 2 players at a time. One will put a Thunder debuff on 2 players at a time that, after it expires, will blow up in a large AoE around you. And the Doom debuff, if you don't cleanse it, you die. And then the 5th one drops white puddles under a random player that explode after a few seconds, so you have to be out of them, but after they explode, they leave a small light circle on the ground to cleanse Doom. If you don't have deaths in this phase, everybody will get 1 Doom and 1 Thunder. Okay, so 8 total Dooms, 8 total Thunders. If people die, then it can get a little hectic, but that just means if you've already had your Doom or your Thunder, you're not going to get it again. 4 random players will get the fire, and then as long as that's handled properly, you don't have to worry about ice. So the other thing that the dragons do is they do dives later in the fight. So 5 dragons spawn around the arena. Later on, we will go through the dive bombs and how those work. So first, let's just get into the Nail phase. So we're about to have our first quote mechanic. So Nail is famous for the quote phase. So the first quote that Nail does is the lightning debuffs. The first set of lightning debuffs will go out, and then Nail will do one of 2 quotes. The quotes will either be in and stack, so she'll do a dynamo, which is a donut AoE, and then a stack, or she'll do a dynamo followed by a chariot, which is in and out. So the way that you resolve this is we have our Thunder players call left and right, the group stacks behind the boss, and we have our Thunder players call left and right, so that when they blow up, they don't cleave each other, and they don't cleave the boss. Okay? So this was in and stack, and then this is our first fire tether. So the group just stays in one spot. You don't have to move. You have the Thunder people spread here and here, and then stack with the group. If it's in and out, then she'll do the dynamo, and then everybody runs out. You can have the party run out here, and then you can have your Thunder players run out to the side if you'd like. There is enough time for them to come to the group and go out, but they can also just go out their respective sides. And then, so you'll either have the stack or the chariot here. So as soon as this mechanic resolves, so we saw the stack, the party will need to move because you'll see the first light puddle spawn underneath here. Okay, you do want to move as a group stacked. We just would always move clockwise around the boss. That way everybody gets the fire. And in this first sequence, there will be 2 of these doom cleansing puddles that drop. Now, if you had in and out, then you would just stay in, then you'd go out, and then when she does the chariot, the puddle would spawn, further south. You'd do the one puddle further south, then you'd move up and you'd do the next puddle here. Or if you have the stack, you do this puddle, then you rotate around. So you can see that I have the doom now. So I've already gotten the thunder and the doom on this one. So the way that the doom works is the doom will always come out in like a 5-second interval. So in the first set, you get 2 dooms. One is like 5 seconds and one is 10. The 5-second grabs the first puddle, the 10-second grabs the second, and then later we'll see you'll get them at 5, 10, and 15, and there'll be 3 puddles at a time. So I just walk in here, you can see the little puddle, and I cleanse my doom. The party rotates around. The second doom is going to go over and cleanse their puddle, and we've got our first quote mechanic done. So this is our second fire tether. So you can see that our scholar here is going to take this fire tether and go out. So he is going to step out and soak that by himself, and then we're going to get our next set of thunders. So you can see the thunders come down. So the thunder players are just going to go out so that they aren't killing anybody. So you can see we have our dancer over here, and then our scholar who had the fire debuff has the thunder now, so they're just going to spread out from the party. One big thing is that if the main tank gets the thunder, they need to communicate that with the group and make sure that the group is at max melee so that the thunder will explode on the north side of the boss and the party can, survive on the south side. So we have gotten that, and now we're going to get our second quote. So the second quote is either stacking in or stacking out. So this one is blazing path, that means stack, and then iron is a chariot, so we're going to be doing stacking out. So we're just going to stack here, and then we will be moving out. The chariot will go off, and then our first doom cleansing puddle will drop. So we're going to drop this one here, we're going to move forward, and then we're going to rotate clockwise. So that's always kind of our pathing here. So the dooms are coming out now, so you can see we have 3 players with doom. So the one with the 5-second duration is going to go cleanse first. This will be the second person is cleansing here, and then while this is going on, thunders go out. So typically if the main tank doesn't get this doom, what we would do is we would just keep rotating clockwise around the boss, and then the people with thunder would just go straight out from where they are or rotate counterclockwise. So you can have your party rotating clockwise, and then you can have your thunder player, one thunder player go out and one thunder player rotate counterclockwise, just to make sure that the explosion doesn't hit other people and kill them. So we have our 3 doom players, so this is going to be our third puddle is going to cleanse there. And then we have our third fire tether comes out here. So the third fire tether comes out here, and you can kind of see our scholar is over here on the opposite side not getting hit by this fire. Like I said, the fire tether does snapshot when the tether expires, not when the animation goes off. And that's going to be important coming up when we do our next set of Thunder and Ice. Actually, looks like he didn't get out and he got killed, so that will happen. So the third set of quotes is pretty easy. The third set of quotes is always a dive and then either a dynamo or a chariot. So this is our first time that we utilize our quick march spread in the Nael phase. So you can see what we do is we have our scholar typically would just stay under the boss, and then we have we have one tank here, and then we just had everyone else kind of spread in their quick march positions around the boss, just to make sure that when he dives, no one gets cleaved by the dive and dies. So this is a dive and a dynamo, so we're just going to get in. We like to get behind the boss, no matter which direction they're facing, and then we use this as our rotation because we have our last set of dooms and fire and thunder. And this part is the most complicated because you will have the last set of people that get thunder need to get hit by the fire and then dodge the thunder out, and you only have about a 2-second window to do this. So it's important that everyone is stacked and is moving in unison. So we was stacked behind the boss wherever he's facing. So there was the thunder debuff. The fire tether, when it expires, it snapshots, and then you can see we have our thunder people, like, so our group is rotating clockwise, and our thunder people are going out and counterclockwise to make sure that we don't cleave each other. So then we have our 3 dooms, first doom, second, and third, and we just kind of rotate around to keep those kind of nice and controlled. Now, if you don't have doom, you can accidentally run on top of those puddles and cleanse. So if you do that, someone will die, so try not to do that, but it will happen during prog. Just try to minimize it as much as you can. So now we're getting into our dive bomb markers. I would highly recommend that you have some... So, okay, Raven's Beak is just another 5-hit tank buster you have to mitigate through, and... So when it comes to the dive bombs, here's how they work. 5 dragons will spawn around the arena. They can spawn at any cardinal or intercardinal. And then 3 players will get marked with dive bomb markers in succession. And then there will either be, there will always be a nail code after that. And so it'll either be a spread or a stack, and the tank will get dove on as well. So there's a lot going on here. So the way these work is the first player that gets marked will bait the first 2 dragons starting at 12 o'clock. So you could have the first dragon at 12 and at north and northeast, okay? And so you have to bait those to where they dive and don't kill anyone. The second marker baits the 3rd dragon, rotating clockwise, and then the 3rd marker baits the 4th and the 5th dragons, again rotating clockwise. This can be kind of problematic because you could have the very first dragon be at north and the second dragon could be at south, which means you have to bait the marker way over here at 3 o'clock or at the due east, and then they're just going to dive right here. And so it makes this half of the arena deadly, so the raid kind of has to adjust. So this takes a lot of just kind of practice and calling out and just group coordination, but you're going to see this a ton. It is very common to bait the dragons in between each other. And while this is going on, the first 2 dive bomb markers will get targeted with Hypernova as well, which will just drop 2 puddles. So that mechanic kind of resolves itself as long as you don't just stay put. So I missed that. I think this might be our... Yeah, so our first marker went up here, and then our second marker is right here and is going down to bait the second dragon. I would highly recommend that you just have someone assigned to calling clock spots for these dragon baits. So there will be a lot of resources that we can look at to where to bait those, but that's how that mechanic works. So you can see the Hypernova gets dropped. So he baited the Hypernova, and then his dragon dive. This was a stack pattern, so you can see our main tank is moving kind of into the first dive. That way he's going to be safe because he is going to get dove on first, and no one can be by the main tank or they will die, and then we're going to have a stack, so we are stacked here. If it was spread, everyone just kind of needs to be in loose spread, kind of like we did earlier for the 3rd quote, because meteor streams will happen, and it'll only target 4 people, but they do splash, so if anyone is too close, they will die. So now we're going to stack for the thermionic beam, and that's pretty much the end of the Nael phase. If you haven't had a ton of deaths, you're going to have another Raven's Beak that you have to mitigate through, and then if you don't kill Nael here, she will do 2 more sets of random quotes. It can be any quotes that you had previously, so it could be stack in, stack out, in, out, dive and spread, dive and in, etc. It can be any of those. So, but at that point, those are pretty easy to handle once you've gotten to this point on Nael. The biggest thing is just making sure that you have someone in charge of researching how to do the dive bombs and then calling those. There are 2 different strats a lot of people are using in Party Finder where you can 95 to 99% of the time, I think, you can use 2 o'clock, 5 o'clock, and 8 o'clock, or 2 o'clock, 7 o'clock, and 10 o'clock, depending upon where the 2nd and the 3rd dragons are located. So a lot of people do that. We just had someone look at it and call, okay, you can go to A, and then between A and B, and then between C and D, just based on where the dragons are. So do what works well for your group, and then you'll get through Nail, and we'll go through the transition to Bahamut and Quick March Trio in the next video.